What's up, Dodger fans? Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Incline Dodgers podcast. We're here. It's basically spring training. Dodgers pitchers, catchers have reported. Numerous stars and position players have shown up, as well as everyone is reported to camp. Camp officially here February 11th. Spring training, I believe, first action game-wise takes place on the 20th of February. But here we are. The season is officially here. The Super Bowl is done. Maybe we'll talk about that later and some Luka Doncic action if we have time. But we know why you guys are here. You want us to talk Dodgers. That's what the Incline Dodgers podcast is for, presented by Tick Pick and Fansided. This is Kevin Klein speaking. Well, why don't we kick off the show with a player we've been talking about bringing back since literally last year, because they brought him back and then he helped them win a World Series. Now they brought him back once again. Kiké Hernandez agrees to a 1-year, $6.5 million contract with the Dodgers. He's officially back on the Dodgers roster for 2025. Gavin Stone goes to the 60-day IL as expected. We'll miss all of 2025. Jake, what are your thoughts? Obviously, you're high on Kiké, but let's tap into it again. Kiké's a Dodger. What does that mean?
Kiké is a Dodger, and this offseason, Kevin, is, pretty much we got everything we wanted. There is really nothing else left to get other than bringing back Kiké Hernandez, and then we'll get into Clayton Kershaw in a little bit. But as far as this roster, it is as complete as it can be. And there are going to be a lot of storylines in spring training, seeing how Roki Sasaki looks, what is Shohei's timeline for his pitching debut, a couple of position battles out there. The rotation kind of is going to take shape. So there's a lot of things to keep in mind. But one thing is for certain, Kiké Hernandez is back, and I couldn't be happier about this move. I kind of wish that we, were able to kind of sign him for maybe more than 1 year, so we don't have to keep doing this year after year. But it is what it is. Dave Roberts said it last offseason when they signed him to a 1-year deal. They're not getting Kiké Hernandez for the regular season, even though he's going to be beneficial at any position that they put him at, and he's going to be value added wherever they put him. But they're not getting him for the regular season. His regular season stats are great historically. They're getting him for October, and he showed up yet again in October. They decided to put him in the starting lineup. They never looked back. He came up with big clutch hits like he always does. A huge factor as to why the Dodgers won the World Series, and a big reason why the Dodgers won Game 5 of the NLDS against the Padres. So just a great addition to this team. Once again, Kiké Hernandez is back. And I think as Dodgers fans, we're left just feeling whole, I think.
Do you have those October numbers in front of you? Because
I'm going to bring them up right now.
It's music to my ears.
Yeah, give us your thoughts on Kiké while I pull these up.
No brainer. Obviously, like you said, you're bringing Kiké Hernandez onto this roster for one reason, and that's one reason only, to hit in October, which he seems to do every year for the Dodgers. And I guess it makes sense to continue to give him 1-year contracts, because pay him that 1 year. At some point, he's probably not going to hit in October. But so far, he's proven all the skeptics wrong, and he's delivered pretty much every postseason. You can look back to numerous years now with him in a Dodgers uniform, and every season there seems to be that one pinpoint moment you can look back on for a big Kiké Hernandez October hit. So you got the numbers in front of you?
Absolutely. I love reading these numbers. I love looking back at them because they're just so beautiful. So let's start, first of all, with last year's postseason for Kiké Hernandez. And by the way, they signed him for $6.5 million, which I think is a bargain given the value he adds in the postseason. But last October, he hit .294 with an .808 OPS, .357 on base, 2 homers, 6 RBIs. An unbelievable offensive output from someone that wasn't in the starting lineup day in and day out during the regular season. But if you take a look at the macro view, right, career postseason, he's a career .278 hitter in October, .875 OPS, an on-base percentage, .353, 15 career home runs, 35 RBIs, 3 stolen bases. He is just built for this. And I think for the first time especially this past October, he really kind of leaned into that Mr. October moniker, right? Like he really, they started to really ask him because it was the sample size was getting large enough to where you're like, what is it with this guy? And he just, whatever happens in October, just the lights are the brightest and he can just focus and hone in on what he has to do. I think he talked about maybe struggling with some like ADD or ADHD, maybe during the season, feeling a little distracted. You know, it's tough 162 games to stay focused day in and day out. You know, not everyone is built like Freddie Freeman or Shohei or Mookie. But when it gets to October and Kiké knows what his role is and his role is to produce, it gives that narrow focus for him. And I think that's kind of what allows him to block out everything else and just focus on what he needs to do.
I don't have the exact stats pulled up in front of me, but another thing that helped Kiké Hernandez's game last year, if I'm not mistaken, was the goggles or the glasses or getting his eyes corrected. He wasn't seeing the ball from the pitcher properly. And then the Dodgers and his medical staff helped correct that. And then Kiké started to make better contact, and that correlated into October. But yeah, this was a awesome addition for the Dodgers, obviously. Just to be redundant, we don't really care what he does in the regular season. It's what boils down to October. For some reason, every year there's someone in the Dodgers lineup that struggles. So then you have to insert a guy like Kiké Hernandez, which to me has always been the Robert Horry equivalent. NBA crossed over to MLB. That's basically who Kiké is. And now
Big shot Rob.
With the addition of Kiké coming to this 26-man roster, more so specifically on the 13 position players, it was already a tight fit. This gets even tighter now. Let's dive into it, Jake. So who's going to miss the cut, assuming everyone's healthy come opening day?
I think because of the options available, it's probably going to be someone like a Pages or someone like that that you can send down to the minors, because ideally you'd like to get rid of Chris Taylor, but you can't really do that unless you DFA him or trade him. And his value right now is just so low, even though he's on the final year of his contract. He's going to be on the roster, but I think it's going to be someone like Andy Pages that maybe doesn't make the cut.
Yeah, Ken Rosenthal wrote about it in The Athletic yesterday, and I actually had the same exact parallels with him. It's going to come down to Andy Pages and Chris Taylor. That's really it. And last year, the Dodgers had Manuel Margot on their roster for a vast majority of spring training.
For 5 minutes.
And he played a few games and didn't do shit for the Dodgers. Ultimately, they ended up shipping him off to Minnesota, and that freed up the roster spot for Kiké Hernandez. Luckily, this go around, we don't have to wait around and ask, where's Kiké? He's on the Dodgers day one of spring training. But I think it's this simple. It's going to come down to Chris Taylor and Andy Pages. And honestly, the way the Dodgers have been kind of hard-nosed a little lately, they made some tough cuts with Brazier and Jason Hayward last year. This team's serious to win, and I don't think they're going to really wait around and see for a guy like Chris Taylor if Andy Pages, let's say, is just smashing the ball this spring. Like, let's just say Andy Pages is hitting plus 400, multiple home runs, hard contacts, and looking very accountable out there defensively. And then you got Chris Taylor in this scenario. Let's just say he's struggling, soft contact, weak grounders, and just looks lifeless. I don't think the Dodgers are going to really dick around here and give Taylor that veteran edge. I think they would honestly pull the plug if Andy Pages forces their hand.
I agree. I think the Dodgers are all business now. They won a World Series. They're trying to capitalize on that. They're trying to go back to back for the first time, I think, since the Yankees did it. And maybe even go for a three-peat if that happens. I think that they are very much focused on accomplishing that. And I think with the players in that locker room that have already won World Series, either on other teams like Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts, they've also now won a World Series on the Dodgers. There's a tendency maybe to get a little complacent and maybe not have that focus in mind of winning it all. But I think I listened to an interview that Freddie Freeman did with David Vassay at the Fan Fest, and basically Freddie was saying we're laser focused because we want to create a dynasty. We want to go back to back. We, that is the goal, because it, whether you win or lose, right? The baseball world is going to hate the Dodgers regardless. I mean, we saw this with the big bad Yankees for so long, and we saw this even recently with the Chiefs. People rooting against the Chiefs because they don't want to see Mahomes three-peat. They don't want to see, the GOAT conversation between him and Brady. And so it doesn't matter, right? I mean, your goal, if you're on a championship level team, is to win championships. And so if that is the goal, to do that every single year, even if you just won one, I think they might have to get tough and get rid of Chris Taylor, as tough as that is, as much value as he's added to this team over his career. But I think at this point, Kevin, he might be washed. He just might be at the tail end of the magic. And they were able to squeeze so much more out of Chris Taylor than I think even he realized he was capable of. So I think at this point, it's like, thank you for your service, but we have to move on.
Yeah. And I don't want to hear it about the Dodgers are going to wait for his 10-year mark to come up so he gets that pension. I mean, that might end up being the outcome, and I'm not saying it's wrong, but if I was looking at it right now from an investment standpoint, Chris Taylor wouldn't even be in the league for 10 years if it wasn't for the Dodgers. And think about how much money we already gave him up front. We turned this guy into a $60 million contract player. I don't think Chris Taylor has that success for any other franchise. So thank you, Chris Taylor, for your service. But at the same time, it's the Dodgers who made you who you are. So
I mean, they turned him into an all-star.
Exactly. So I'm getting tough here, but I just feel like we don't owe him anything at this point.
Yeah, and after that all-star season in 2021, in 22, he hit 220, 23, he hit 237. Last year, he hit 202. I mean, it's just a kind of a consistent, mediocre output from him.
Yeah. So appreciate everyone tuning in to the live stream. Hit that like button if you haven't yet. If you got questions for me or Jake, you can drop them in the chat as well. We got some questions online that we'll get to later on in the episode. And yes, we're going to talk about a certain pitcher in just a couple of minutes. But I wanted to get another quick thought out there because I've seen a few people have this analysis, and frankly, I think they're just misguided. I've seen some people speculate that Ha-Seong Kim's going to start the year in AAA. I think that's a fallacy. I think Kim is locked in to make this major league roster, barring that he's just abysmal this spring, strikes out like a crazy clip and makes no contact. Maybe that's a different discussion, but I'm pretty sure Kim signed with the Dodgers to be an instant major league player. He had numerous offers out there on the table. Obviously, the Dodgers was the most appealing to him because of their success and the ability to get the most out of him. I think the Dodgers view this guy as their new left-handed utility player. I think he's going to get the bulk of the starts probably at second base early on in the season against right-handed pitching. I think that's also why they got rid of Gavin Lux, not only because of the lack of versatility, but because they want to give Kim the rope here and make him the spot starter at second when they can. And they're going to give him shots at probably third base, second base, shortstop, and some outfield. So I think we're going to see Kim all over the field this season. And I'm not expecting a crazy batting average. I'm not expecting crazy power at all. He's probably going to be a below average bat in his first season, but I still think he's going to have a positive WAR because I think the value he's going to bring defensively is going to make up for it for the Dodgers. And we're not counting on his bat, at least early on in the season, to really produce for the Dodgers because we're loaded with amazing all-stars throughout the lineup. So you can put Kim at the 9-hole. He's out there for defense, and I think that's the way to look at it. I think a 220 to 240 batting average, WRC plus in the low 80s, and a few home runs, I'll take it if he's an A-plus defender and maybe makes a strong case to be the Gold Glove utility player in 2025.
Yeah, and I was going to say, because you brought up Gavin Lux, that was the point I was going to make. That, you're not trading Gavin Lux if you don't fully believe in Kim, because that was kind of a log jam. What do you do there? You've got two left-handed hitting second basemen. One of them like you said, has a lot of limitations defensively in Gavin Lux. And you bring in Hae-Sung Kim, who is a wizard defensively, has won multiple gold gloves at both second base and shortstop in the KBO. So for me, that was a surefire way to say that you're going to get the majority of at-bats at second base against right-handed pitching. And now with Kiké Hernandez in the fold, you can do a straight platoon with those guys if you like. Kim can also move over to shortstop. Obviously, they're going to have him spell Mookie Betts. And then Miguel Rojas is also an available defense. I mean, defensively, I think the Dodgers have a lot of depth.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Clayton Kershaw was spotted at Camelback Ranch today for the Dodgers. He's in an agreement with the deal, looking like it'll be official tomorrow as he rounds out an amazing career here. Early thoughts here on Clayton Kershaw returning to the Dodgers. I mean, no one's surprised, but
what is this, year 18?
That's what I was looking up to confirm. It's season 18 for Clayton Kershaw.
That is wild.
2.50 career ERA still. Just one of the best starting pitchers you'll career-wise and stuff-wise you'll ever see ever in your lifetime.
What's kind of crazy when you think about it is that, Kershaw has been in the league 18 years, and when did he debut? 2008, right?
Yeah.
So if you think about it, LeBron James has been in the NBA since 2003. So 5 years before Kershaw debuts, that's how long LeBron James has been. And then you think about how long Kershaw's been around. I mean, it's kind of a crazy thing to wrap your mind around. But I think it was always inevitable. Kershaw coming back to the Dodgers, he kind of made a point over these last few years as he's been going year to year that he's going to pitch as long as he can, be effective out there. He does not want to go out there and be just getting obliterated like a Noah Syndergaard, every time out. He wants to be able to finish his career, at a point where he goes out on some type of high. Now, the Dodgers did win the World Series this past season, so that would have been a high for him, but he didn't contribute at all. I mean, he never really pitched. So I think for him, pride-wise, I think he wants to come back and pitch for this team and be effective and be a factor. So I couldn't be happier with him coming back. Obviously, once that deal becomes official, they'll move him to the 60-day IL as he, rehabs. I think it's a foot injury, right? Or he had some kind of surgery, right?
And toe and knee. That's what I was going to ask you is what do you kind of expect his timeline to be? Do you think he's going to be out multiple months, or does he come back early June? I feel like we haven't gotten a clear timeline yet, injury-wise. What to expect from Kershaw was a little more transparent last season. They told us probably wouldn't be back till around July, and I think that was the case. This year, I don't recall it being that evident yet what his true comeback date is.
I mean, I think you can pretty much set the bar low at like post All-Star break, because I feel like they're going to just slow play him as much as possible. And that's something I do want to get into it with you, Kevin, about the starting rotation, because there are a lot of guys that are, battling injuries, coming back from injuries. The starting rotation is going to be interesting this year, given, Kershaw's, limits. Tony Gonsolin, I hope, is going to be some type of factor this year, but he's coming back from injury. You've got Tyler Glass now coming back from injury. Yamamoto suffered some injuries last year. So I'm curious what the starting rotation is going to look like once spring training is over and they break for the regular season, because they're going to need so many of these guys in spring training. And I think that's a huge storyline of looking at guys like Dustin May and Tony Gonsolin and, what does Landon Knack look like? Because they're not going to have Gavin Stone. They're not going to have River Ryan. They're going to need these guys that are kind of fighting for roster spots to be available, because they're going to be used if they're healthy.
Yeah, I mean, like brief previews, since this is what we're talking about. You got a guy like Tyler Glass now who was throwing today. It looks like he kind of modified his delivery. Clearly, he's trying to do something with his mechanics where there's less stress on that elbow since he obviously had his season cut short last season with the tendonitis, but now he's a full go. How do you keep a guy like Tyler Glass now who can lay it all out there April and May, but ensure he's healthy and pitching in October? That's one guy that's just never done it in his career, and I think it's going to be a challenge for the Dodgers to find a way to put him down at the right spots.
Yeah, I know. It's going to be interesting because I feel like there's a lot of pitchers where in this rotation where you're like, if they can just be healthy in the second half of the season and ride that into October, that's what's going to matter because this team is going to make the playoffs. And I think I mean, obviously that's been the case every year recently, but especially, these past couple of years, 2 to 3 years where it's a given. And so you can take your time with getting these guys back and healthy, but like you want Yamamoto to be healthy. And I think when Yamamoto had his injury last season and was able to recover within enough time to ramp up for the postseason, it played out perfectly. It really did. And I think if that's any kind of model, that they'll probably try and follow that somehow. But with the injury history of this Dodgers pitching staff, it's going to be a tough game to play because you obviously want Yamamoto ready for the playoffs. You obviously want Roki Sasaki in the plan somehow. You want him to be a postseason pitcher. And that goes for Glass now too, which, we mentioned he pitched more innings last year than he's ever had in his career, and he couldn't get to October. So yeah. I'm curious how they play it. I mean, I think that 6-man rotation idea is hopefully going to help that.
Yeah, and on that Glass now note, it wasn't like the amount of innings he pitched was that high either. It was like 120 or whatever. And I don't expect any Dodgers this season to pitch over 150 innings. I think we'll be lucky if we've got 2 Dodgers starting pitchers that exceed 130 innings. Yamamoto pitched like 99 innings last season. I doubt the Dodgers give him a full season workload. Like you were saying, they need to find a way to keep him fresh in the second half. Blake Snell has a track record of staying healthy, so hopefully he can be that dog in the starting rotation you can count on. Tony Gonsolin, I think we're going to see a lot of this season. If he stays healthy, I think they're just going to let him go out there, pick up his 5 to 6 innings every night, and he's going to be that innings eater. And if he can give us a mid 3 ERA to a low 4 ERA as a 5th or 6th starter, you'll gladly take that. And to kind of go back to Clayton Kershaw, when he makes his return to the Dodgers starting rotation, it's no longer Clayton Kershaw, the ace, the forefront of the Dodgers rotation. It's Clayton Kershaw, the back end of your Dodgers starting rotation. He's the 5th or maybe arguably the 6th starter at this point. Last season was the first season ever in his career where he finished the year with a negative WAR. It was a small sample size, only 30 innings. Little unlucky, had a 4.50 ERA, but a 3.53 FIP, 1.5 WHIP. So it was just not a good season for Kershaw, who clearly just wasn't healthy and right. Hopefully this season he looks a lot better and can go out on a high note and can be a contributor for the Dodgers, especially in October. Because if this Dodgers starting rotation is healthy, I don't know where there's room for Kershaw, but that's a whole different discussion way down the line. We're hoping that we've got Yamamoto, Ohtani pitching, Sasaki, Blake Snell, and then toss it between Glasnow, Kershaw, Bobby Miller, Gonsolin, Dustin May.
Yeah, Bobby Miller. That's another one we're gonna need him back too. I mean, he needs to figure it out. Hopefully, he has a good comeback.
Yeah, so I'm buying my Bobby Miller shares. When Blake Snell spoke to David Vassay on the FanFest day on AM 570, he said he was assigned with being Bobby Miller's mentor this season. So
love that.
I love that pairing. I think it's going to be sensational for the Dodgers. And we'll talk about Bobby Miller more later on in the offseason or spring training now and leading up to the regular season. But definitely a name to watch out for. Dodger Gal asking us thoughts on Aaron Boud's comments today that the Dodgers didn't handle their World Series win with class. Quote, hopefully we're in that position next year and handle things with a little more class.
It's just so soft. I mean, Aaron Boone comes from an era of baseball where he was playing with before the Buster Posey rule, before, it was frowned upon to, hit guys on purpose. You would hit a guy on purpose. You would, the teammates or manager would tell you to plunk the guy, you know what I mean? Like it was just such a, a different era that he came from. So for him to have that kind of response is asinine, in my opinion, especially when you consider he's the manager of the New York fucking Yankees. Like, that fan base, never handles itself with class or respect. They tried to rip Mookie's arm off during a game, and ESPN wrote a glowing article about those buffoons. Now, thankfully, they were banned to some capacity. But you know what? If you win the World Series, you can say or do whatever the hell you want within reason. Obviously, you don't want to, go outside the law and be a criminal, but like you should be able to celebrate and say what you want. I mean, handling it with class. Why? Why do we need to handle that with class? That is what you work for your entire career as a baseball player, to be able to win a World Series. And for a lot of these guys that have been in the Dodgers organization, that have been with the team for as long as they have been, that have never won World Series and are now finally getting to that mountaintop in a full season, the first full season title since 1988, say whatever you want. It's a ridiculous thing to say. And every time someone comes out like that and starts whining about how the Dodgers, responded or whatever they said, it's just bullshit. And it's also like, well, okay, fine. You want to do the talking, you want to, say what you want or handle it with class or whatever, then win the World Series, beat the Dodgers. Then you can do whatever you want.
Yeah. And just to add to that, calling out John Birdie as well, who,
what did you do, John?
Yeah.
Did you contribute at all?
I think he was on foul territory, and he's not even on the Yankees now. He's on the Cubs, but he was left off the World Series roster, and that's what he wanted to comment on, saying that the Dodgers were, again, not handling the World Series win with class. Like come on. The Yankees have become toilet paper, tissue paper soft, and maybe that's a casualty of Aaron Boone being the manager, or the Steinbrenner organization with their povertyness now.
Oh yeah, that's another thing. Do you think George Steinbrenner would be happy his manager was saying these things if he were alive today? No, that's something that George Steinbrenner would fire a manager. I mean, he didn't really need a reason to fire a manager, but like that would be something where he'd be like, "You're out, you're done." That's ridiculous.
So in other news now, former Dodgers general manager Farhan Zaidi is back with the Los Angeles Dodgers in a consulting role, I suppose, and is going to work as an advisor and will help Mark Walter and the Guggenheims in their other endeavors. I don't really have an opinion about Farhan coming back to the Dodgers. In my opinion, Farhan was a little overrated because of just his failures in San Francisco. I mean, thank you, Farhan, for ruining the Giants, because that's exactly what you did. You had one crazy outlier season that I don't think anyone will ever be able to explain. But besides that, it was nothing but mediocrity in San Francisco. But yeah, welcome back, Farhan.
Yeah, I have nothing to say about that. It's just, he wanted to go out and be the general manager of a team and have his own team. And that's the result that you get. Now, it's not all his fault. I mean, it's tough to sell players on a city they don't want to come to. What are you supposed to do about that? So, I mean, it's not all his fault, but I guess welcome back to the fold. You're the job you did have before you left isn't there anymore.
We've got a little bit of breaking news here on the incline. Dodgers, one of the Dodgers' top high leverage relievers, Evan Phillips. It's been reported, credit to Bill Plunkett, dropped the details that Evan Phillips was dealing with a torn rotator cuff near the back end of his shoulder, and he had experienced that around the right before the World Series, I believe, and just started picking up a ball recently. He's looking to get a PPI injection right now and explore a second opinion. But maybe this explains why the Dodgers signed Kirby Yates, because at first glance, this doesn't sound like good news surrounding Evan Phillips.
Yeah, I'm glad they signed Kirby Yates, Tanner Scott. I mean, they really fortified the bullpen because there are some major absences in this upcoming season. Two of them being, Daniel Hudson and Joe Kelly are not there anymore. So you kind of had to fill those spots. But also Brusdar Graterol, right? I mean, he's had off-season surgery, I believe. He's coming back from an injury. Michael Kopech, it's been reported that he has some arm issues. And so all these, kind of things that are up in the air right now. It's good that we were able to get a guy like Kirby Yates, but it's unfortunate for Evan Phillips. I mean, he's one of those diamonds in the rough finds that the Dodgers always get, and has been spectacular in this bullpen as a high leverage reliever. And you started to see some cracks in the armor last season where he would get hit around pretty good, kind of out of character for him. He's been so dominant for such a long period of time there with the Dodgers that, he kind of looked human last year. And so it's unfortunate that he was dealing with some type of injury, but again, the Dodgers have the depth to be able to, weather that storm and allow these guys to make a full recovery.
Yeah. And so it sounds like he's not going to be healthy in time for opening day, which might open the door for a random flyer they signed early in this offseason, like Giovanni Gallegos potentially. Or this next question coming from Renko74. Thoughts on the Dodgers easing Dustin May in as a relief pitcher?
I mean, we've talked about that a lot. And I think you and I are in agreement that him as a high leverage arm sounds great. I mean, he has nasty put away strikeout stuff. And for an inning or two, for him to just come in and throw gas and mow down a lineup or get the heart of an order out, I like that for him. The only issue with any of this is him being available. We don't know if he can do that, and we also don't know if they're going to try him in the starting rotation again, which, as we were detailing before, there's going to be a lot of question marks and a lot of injuries, a lot of slow ramping up of these starting pitchers. So it would be great if he could be a starting pitcher. I think that's kind of maybe the goal that the Dodgers are going to try and do, is see if he can actually come back as a starter. But if it turns out that they're going to put him in the bullpen, I like his stuff coming out of the bullpen.
I have no idea what his stuff even looks like now. He hasn't pitched in 2 years. He had a second elbow surgery. When we had Fabian Ardaya on, he said that the Dodgers plan to at least stretch out Dustin May. So I think, especially with a couple injuries right now, Dustin May might start the season on the Dodgers, in the Dodgers starting rotation, and we'll see what happens. But this guy just doesn't have a track record of making it past the month of May, and his last name is May, ironically. And that goes with another online question from Alexander Ora too, which I'll just answer quickly because I want to be conscious of time here. What would you trade Dustin May for? I think just based off how tight the market's been, I mean, the Dodgers didn't get anything for Ryan Brazier. I don't think the Dodgers will get a lot for Dustin May either. I think it'd be a very young, low-level prospect, and you'd have to take it and be happy with that. So we'll see what Dustin May looks like this spring. I don't call him a lock at any point right now to make the Dodgers opening day roster, but again, we'll see how he looks. Next question coming from SoCal Flow, and I think this is speaking Jake's language. Confidence level with Mookie Betts at shortstop. Do you think he lasts the entire year?
Well, the thing is that the difference between last year and this year is that Mookie's had an entire off season now and spring training to be able to work out at this position to get better. And certainly he's taken the steps to do that. And the Dodgers feel that he's comfortable enough to be the shortstop. I still think it's the dumbest thing that they've not ever done, but it's one of the dumber things I think to try and do with your, superstar Gold Glove and former MVP outfielder to move him to shortstop in his 30s. No one ever does that. But if there's anybody that can do it, it's Mookie Betts. And the issue with him at shortstop was never, can he get to the ball? Can he, does he have enough range? Can he field it? It was throwing. And obviously throwing from the infield is a lot different than throwing from the outfield. So if he's able to clean that up, maybe he can be an everyday shortstop. But I mean, I think I think the Dodgers have contingencies in place, right? They've got Miguel Rojas, they've got Hae-Sung Kim, Kiké Hernandez can play shortstop, Tommy Edman can play shortstop. So there are backup plans for if this doesn't work. So I would foresee them having no issue pulling the plug on that if that is the case. But I honestly feel better that Mookie Betts has had a full offseason to do this, but why do we need to do this? I've never liked it at any point.
I'll take this next question from Yang Yi. Who do you think will have the most saves this season after Tanner? After Tanner Scott, that is, because Dave Roberts has already confirmed Tanner Scott will get the bulk of the early save opportunities, which is a no-brainer. I mean, you don't give a guy $72 million and not be the Dodgers closer, especially when he's an all-star and one of the top high-leverage guys in the league. You got Kirby Yates, Evan Phillips. We can X him out because he's injured. Blake Trinan. I mean, instead of Phillips, I guess Kopech. But regardless, I think the answer is still Kirby Yates at the end of the day. I think on nights where Tanner Scott is resting or isn't available, they're going to probably go to Kirby Yates as their fallback guy. And I mean, this is a guy that has a ton of closing experience himself, also was an all-star last season. So I don't even think this one's even debatable unless you think I'm wrong. But I think Kirby Yates probably finishes second in saves, barring like him just coincidentally not being available the same night Tanner Scott's unavailable. And then they have to go to someone else random like a Trinan or Vesia, etc.
I mean, I don't feel like Trinan is that random. I think he could easily get the second most saves this season. I mean, he has closing experience as well, and was kind of the de facto closer last year for the Dodgers down the stretch and in the postseason. But generally, I have to agree with you, though. I mean, it's going to be Tanner Scott and Kirby Yates. And even though Scott's probably going to get the majority of the save opportunities, I wouldn't be surprised if they played the matchup game too. I mean, they have that ability with this bullpen. That's why it's so versatile.
All right. Anything else you want to cover, Jake, real quick before I shift? We're going to do the Incline Awards.
Yes. Quick thoughts on Kenley Jansen to the Angels. I know you were kind of high on Kenley Jansen, wanting him back. I never wanted him back. I was happy with what he did in Dodger Blue and didn't really need to see him again. But the Angels have had a weird offseason where they've added a bunch of guys that are, either were really good or just, not as good as, not as good anymore. I mean, I don't know what to make of their offseason, but adding Kenley Jansen just kind of fits the mold of what they've been doing so far, I think.
I'm happy for Kenley. He gets to return to Southern California, but he's potentially going to be closing for the last place team in the AL West because I think the Angels are going to be just utter trash this year. And maybe Jansen will get traded somewhere at the deadline, but it's going to be a rough year for the Angels. All right, 4th Annual Incline Awards. We always started off with this category. Pulling up the results right now. Eric Gagne, reliever of the year. This one came down to 2 pitchers. The 3 that didn't really do well at all: Daniel Hudson, Michael Kopech, Evan Phillips. It came down to Blake Trinan and Alex Vesia. Who do you think took home reliever of the year?
I think it was Trinan.
It was Blake Trinan. I think this is his second time taking home the award. I think he won the inaugural kickoff award season. 61% of the vote goes to Blake Trinan. One of my favorites, Dodger that was let go too soon, in memoriam. Loaded category here. You've got Kevin Biggio, Jason Hayward, James Paxton, Miguel Vargas, and Ryan Yarbrough. One particular player had double of the next closest with about 42%. Who was that?
Well, it wasn't Ryan Yarbrough.
No.
I don't know. You tell me.
This year, Jason Hayward, fan favorite Dodger that was let go too soon.
You know what? I kind of like that answer, honestly, because what did Jason Hayward do wrong other than, not duplicate his first season with the Dodgers?
The best blue for GIF worthy moment. D-backs beekeeper ends the delay. If you remember the beekeeper game, finished in last place. You've got Fat Joe with his just terrible ass performance and maybe the Yankees curse. You've got Jorge Lopez, who was pitching for the New York Mets.
I love that moment.
When they were at a low point and then surprisingly made the NLCS later on that year.
It was when he threw his glove over the fence, right?
Yep. He tossed the glove and was immediately DFA'd. Classic right there. You've got Kiké Hernandez after the NLDS win when he was being interviewed live by Ken Rosenthal, and he asks Ken, "Are we live?" And then there's like a pause, and then says, "The fact that we don't give a fuck." And then you've got this was due to popular demand, Yankees World Series Game 5 defense.
I think it's between Yankees World Series Game 5 defense and Kiké Hernandez. But I'm going to go with Kiké.
I would have gone with Kiké too, but he got second. The Yankees World Series Game 5 defense. It was a blooper for sure. It definitely qualifies. Never seen anything like that. You would think this was a scripted inning because the lackadaisical fails on these routine plays, forever baffling.
I think the biggest one for me, behind, like just ahead of Garrett Cole and Anthony Rizzo not covering first base, was the Aaron Judge drop fly ball. That to me was the weirdest one because that couldn't have been an easier play to make. It was right to him, chest high. And
shout out to Jason Hayward too. I'm just seeing it in the chat. New San Diego Padre. They're down so bad they've got to platoon Jason Hayward and Connor Joe next season.
Oh God, if I'm a Padres fan, I'm just, what is that?
Gerardo Parra, Ultimate Dodger Killer. Michael Bush was a nominee. Yu Darvish was a nominee. Manny Machado was a nominee. Giancarlo Stanton was a nominee. Fernando Tatis Jr. earned a nomination. But there's one clear winner here. It's Christian Walker. Ran away with this one. 52% of the votes. Killed the Dodgers this season. I know Jeff Snyder doesn't believe that Christian Walker kills the Dodgers, but the stats back it up. He kills the Dodgers. He has moved on to the Houston Astros.
An honorable mention, Jake Berger. That guy destroys us for some reason.
Jake Berger was like runner-up, I think, 2 years ago. He did kill us. Best individual game. This one's going to be obvious, but I'll just read them off real quick. Tommy Edman, 2 hits, 1 home run, 4 RBIs in the clinching NLCS game against the Mets. I'm going to save the winner for last. Teoscar Hernandez, 2 home runs at Yankee Stadium, 6 RBIs, June 18th. Gavin Stone threw a complete game shutout against the White Sox. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, 7 shutout innings against the Yankees on June 8th. But the clear winner here, Shohei Ohtani, 6 hits, 3 home runs, 10 RBIs, multiple steals in that game when he locked in the 50-50 moment. Did them both in that same game on September 19th.
I thought the Freddie walk-off was going to be number one.
That's not a game. That's a moment.
Oh, best game. Okay.
We'll get to don't spoil shit here.
All right. Sorry.
But yes, I mean, you can't beat that. You had 10 RBIs in a game. How the hell do you top that? Dodgers Cy Young. This one was pretty close. You got Jack Flaherty, Tyler Glasnow, Gavin Stone, Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Pick a guess.
Yamamoto
was the winner. 39% of the vote. Gavin Stone finished second, almost 32%.
Really? Okay.
Zombie Nation, home run of the year. Shout out to when the Dodgers used to play Zombie Nation. Okay, I'll just try to make these quick. We had a bunch of nominees in this one. Mookie Betts, 3-run home run after Shohei Ohtani intentionally walked against the Angels. Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts go back-to-back home runs, resulting in a walk-off against the Rockies. Freddie Freeman, walk-off grand slam, game 1 of the World Series off Nestor Cortez. Freddie Freeman, 8th inning grand slam against the Red Sox. Shohei Ohtani, 2nd inning, 3-run NLDS home run off Dylan Cease in game 1. Shohei Ohtani, walk-off grand slam against the Rays to join the 40-40 club.
It was Freddie. It has to be.
88% said Freddie Freeman. Dodger moment of the last 30 plus years. So obviously a historic moment. Nothing was going to top that. Best Dodgers home run I've ever seen in my lifetime. And I was like thinking about it yesterday in the car, and a tear almost came to my eye. At that moment, I still can't believe it was real.
Yeah, I remember watching it and just emptying my lungs from just screaming at the top of my lungs. I couldn't believe what I was watching.
This is a new category: supporting actor, favorite role player. Tommy Edman, Kiké Hernandez, Gavin Lux, Miguel Rojas.
I think it's Tommy Edman.
Tommy Edman takes it home, 56%.
NLCS MVP.
Absolutely. Dennis Santana, Memorial Gargantua Nutsack Award winner. Alex Vesia, Blake Trinan, Michael Kopech, Brent Honeywell, Walker Buehler. Buehler takes it on his send-off, 66% of the votes. After Walker Buehler closed it out to seal a deal and win the World Series, I don't think anyone was going to take that award from him. Walker Buehler, well-deserved. Another new award I added to the pool as we take some out, add some new ones in. Andrew Fleeceman Award, Best In-Season Acquisition. Anthony Bonda, Tommy Edman, Jack Flaherty, Brent Honeywell, Michael Kopech.
I think it's Tommy Edman again.
It was Tommy Edman, 74% of the vote. Jack Flaherty came in second, but it really wasn't that close. Andre Ethier, regular season clutch moment. Teoscar Hernandez, 9th inning, go-ahead home run against the Colorado Rockies on June 19th. Freddie Freeman, 8th inning, go-ahead grand slam, July 19th against the Red Sox. Shohei Ohtani, walk-off grand slam against the Tampa Bay Rays on August 23rd to join the 40-40 club. I was in Vegas when that happened. Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts hit back-to-back home runs in the bottom of the 9th to give the Dodgers a 6-5 walk-off win September 22nd against the Rockies.
I think it was, well, for me, I think I picked the Teoscar Hernandez one, but it's probably the Shohei 40-40 club.
It was neither. It actually ended up being the Shohei and Mookie Betts walk-off.
That one was great too. I love that. I love that we have two like devastating Rockies moments on there.
That was the moment where the Dodgers basically clinched the division. It was getting a little tight there with the Padres, but that game was pretty much division wrapped up and we didn't have to sweat it out anymore. Okay. This one is one of the close ones for once. It's been a bunch of wipeouts tonight. Idiot of the year. You've got Amy Cuevas, who said on the Bleed Los Dodgers podcast, at that time I called it the Bleed Los Taco, but we won't go there anymore. She said she wanted nothing to do with Shohei Ohtani and was good with him going to the San Francisco Giants. You've got JP Hornstra, who published an article for Dodgers Nation saying it's official. Shohei Ohtani has signed with the Toronto Blue Jays, and then never admitted how wrong he was. Manny Machado gets a nomination, tossed a ball towards the Dodgers dugout during the NLDS, then played victim after the game. You've got Jesse Rogers of ESPN for painting that Yankees fan who interfered with the Mookie Betts' catch attempt and all that as a hero. You've got John Boy for his constant tinfoil hat accusations, accusing Shohei Ohtani of being a degenerate gambler. And then you've got Miles Mikolas at the beginning of the year called the Dodgers checkbook baseball, making that comment while he's making $16 million.
Right. So for me, I don't know which one won, but the one that I chose was the JP Hornstra Shohei Ohtani to the Blue Jays, because out of all of those people you mentioned, I think JP you kind of expect the most from as a credentialed journalist, and he's been a reporter for a long time now. To screw that up as well as he did, and then to not really be, remorseful afterwards, or so, I don't know. Just the way he handled it was bad. I mean, the woman on the podcast, I mean, who is she even anyway? Like, are we expecting great takes from her? I don't think so. I mean, and as evidence of that take, it's like, okay, if that's your take, then we don't need to listen to you anymore. So I'm gonna go with JP on this one.
He was the winner, 30%. It was a neck and neck one. Manny Machado came in second.
Okay.
We're almost to the last few. We're at the last few awards. Pardon my fumbling there, but best Dave Roberts moment. Normally we make fun of Dave Roberts because he always seems to have a big blunder that stands out. But Dave Roberts this season managed nearly flawlessly. So instead, we're going to commemorate a great season Dave Roberts had and make this a positive spin this season, as we expect the Dodgers to lock him into a hefty extension any day now. But anyways, here we go. NLDS Game 4, the bullpen game management was really good. Talking to Blake Trinan in Game 5 of the World Series and letting him go out there in that 8th inning, got 7 outs or whatever it was, multiple innings, huge moment there for Blake Trinan. And obviously Dave Roberts talking to him helped settle him down. Hugging Johan Ramirez. We don't need to remember that one. How about moving Kiké Hernandez into the postseason lineup? Dave grew some balls there and said, I'm going to put my hot hitter in the Dodgers lineup. Obviously paid dividends. And then a move that we questioned, but we were ultimately put in our place. He trusted Yoshinobu Yamamoto to start Game 5 of the NLDS against the San Diego Padres.
To me, it's the Trinan move. I think that is a career-defining move for Dave Roberts, because he's often been criticized for his postseason mismanaging of the bullpen. And to not only leave Blake in that moment, trusting his guys and looking at Freddie Freeman and trusting his players that they all had Blake Trinan's back in that moment. I think that's the best moment for Dave this year. And then also to go with Walker Buehler too, to close it out. So it was just kind of a perfectly managed game for him. I think that's the best one.
It was Blake Trinan, 51%. Bullpen game, second place, 26%. Can't argue with the results there. Okay, hosts most right take. We've got 4 nominees this season. Normally it's 3, but Chris Camelo gets an honorary nomination.
Hey,
Camelo was I give him credit as being the leader of the Sign Teoscar Hernandez movement prior to.
Wait, he's the leader of that? I'm not the leader of that movement? Come on.
You had plenty of chances to challenge that, but you did not. I gave it to Chris. David,
ridiculous,
predicts the Detroit Tigers will be a playoff team in the preseason. And then
they were.
They were. He got that right. He wasn't on much last season, so we don't have much to work off of, but I gave him credit there. We got Jake. Wasn't a big glass now guy. Said he was injury prone, cautioned everyone about trusting him for the longevity. Tyler Glasnow ultimately ended up on the IL and missed like the last 2 months of the season. So credit to Jake for calling that. And then me. Kevin, sorry. Before the World Series, in our Yankees pre-show with the Yankees fan-sided podcast with Adam and Tommy, I said, and I'm not going to quote myself verbatim, but I basically said, if Nestor Cortez is inserted into the World Series game, he's going to get shelled, because I talked about how the Dodgers did that to Kodai Senga. And then in Game 1, in high leverage, to get the final out, Aaron Boone calls upon Nestor Cortez when Tim Hill is right there, and he gives up the walk-off grand slam. So I'm giving myself credit for calling that shit. I get the win, 42% of the vote.
Yeah.
This is the one you don't want to win, unfortunately. Host's most wrong take. So you've got David, and I don't think a lot of people realize this, but David was not a Yoshinobu Yamamoto guy. I don't even know if he was happy about the signing, but maybe he turned around after the fact. But David's had zero faith in Yamamoto to start any elimination game for the Dodgers, proceeded to call him a bad signing after his first start in Korea, and then did it again some more after the fact. And then ultimately Yamamoto won the Dodgers Game 5 of the NLDS. You had Jake, who did not like the Tommy Edman and Michael Kopech trade at all, and you said that on record. Well,
but to be fair, it was more about Kopech than it was Edman, but yes.
Regardless, Edman goes on to win the NLCS MVP, and Michael Kopech delivered in a number of high leverage inning situations and had an ERA of like basically 1. And then Kevin predicted Bobby Miller would finish as a Cy Young Award finalist.
Oh my God.
Bobby Miller finished the year with the league worst ERA of 8.
And finished the year in AAA.
Yes. And then I finished it off and was left off the postseason roster despite being healthy.
Yeah.
I guess people wanted to go after me. I unfortunately got most right and most wrong with 38.5% of the votes. Jake was second with 35. It was a close.
I'm happy to be at least in the top 2 in that category because of what it meant to be wrong about that.
And finally, Dodgers MVP, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Teoscar Hernandez, Shohei Ohtani. Mookie Betts got 0 votes. Teoscar Hernandez got 5% of the votes. Freddie Freeman, 19% of the vote. Shohei Ohtani, 75% of the votes.
Yeah.
That one wasn't going to be any debate there.
Yeah, I mean, because he actually did win MVP.
Yeah, among a million records. That's it. That's the Incline Awards. That's the 4th annual one. Thank you guys for everyone that voted. Appreciate that. We have no awards without your votes, so thank you guys. I don't have anything else Dodgers related. Just wanted to quickly get into a couple miscellaneous things, but before we did
let's do it.
Okay, let's just do it. Okay. So first off, Super Bowl, underwhelming game.
Stinker.
Patrick Mahomes got his ass kicked. That was shocking to me. Good for the Eagles. Well-deserved win. But I want to actually focus on the halftime show quickly. I'm calling out any Dodgers fan that said that Kendrick Lamar performance was trash. Like, okay, I get it if rap's not your thing and you didn't like the music. But if you're saying Kendrick Lamar was bad just because he's bad, then you have no idea what the hell you were talking about. And shame on any Dodgers fan that's going to bash that guy or trash that guy after he drops the Not Like Us smash hit, basically being the Dodgers theme song for the entire 2024 postseason ride. Bunch of posers and haters if you're a Kendrick Lamar hater out there. And you need to have your taste reevaluated because I called out one person, this person who knows who they are. You think McDonald's is a gourmet meal.
I didn't think it was like the best halftime performance that I've seen. I think my favorite recently was the one in LA, the Bengals Rams Super Bowl at SoFi, because it had a collection of different artists that I liked. But I thought he did a really good job. I thought the production value was great. I thought the transitions were really smooth. I thought he was really likable and charismatic and was a good performer. So yeah, I had no issues with it.
Thank you, Aaron Eck, for the kind words. Glad you enjoyed the award show. Last but not least, Luka Doncic, Los Angeles Laker. They are officially 1-0 now in the Luka Doncic era. Was on a minutes restriction, but looked good overall. Had a few lob passes, had some nice assists, made some 3-pointers. General thoughts on Luka being a Los Angeles Laker?
It's crazy. I mean, it really is. I mean, the Dodgers are so stacked, right, with all their stars, and the Lakers have had many stars over the years. So it's like it's easy to get jaded as an LA sports fan when you're talking about star players coming to your favorite team. But I still am in shock that Luka Doncic is a Laker. I mean, given his age and what he meant to Dallas and all of the secrecy of that trade and how it didn't seem real when it first came out, and maybe Shams Charania was hacked. I mean, it was complete mayhem. And then to see him suit up for the team, be on the court with LeBron and Austin Reeves, and this Lakers team that is actually way more fun to watch than it has been in a few years. And I really want to kind of pivot here and say to all the people that thought that, oh, Darvin Ham is just as good or just as bad as JJ Redick. Shut up. You didn't watch any of the games. You didn't watch Darvin Ham coach this team. He had no idea what he was doing, no defensive plan, no rotation ideas. Every decision he made was wrong. His post-game press conferences were bullshit. He was a terrible coach. And I thought that the Lakers advanced in the playoffs despite him. I thought that they had the talent, despite Darvin Ham, to make it to the Western Conference Finals. Now, that being said, I know you're a JJ Redick guy. I love him. I think he's been terrific so far. The fact that the Lakers have won a ton of games without Anthony Davis and before Luka arrived is a true testament to how well JJ Redick is utilizing this roster, because they didn't really have a rim protector without Anthony Davis. I mean, that was the whole crux when Darvin Ham was coaching this team. As soon as Anthony Davis left the floor, it was like, what do you even have anymore? You have no defense whatsoever. It was like a layup line. But JJ Redick has figured something out here, and he's moved pieces around, and this team is way more active defensively than they've ever been. They're engaged, and you got to love it, Kevin.
Yeah, glad you gave me some kudos there. I was a big JJ Redick guy, wanted to go in there blind because I knew that this guy had it. I've heard his analysis for years now. I've heard him on podcasts. When you listen to the way JJ Redick speaks about basketball, you know this guy understands the game. And that's why I was willing to go there with the lack of head coaching experience, because some guys, Sean McVay, another example, some of these guys just have it. And JJ Redick has been a tremendous leader. When that news broke that Luka Doncic was being traded to the Los Angeles Lakers, obviously I was shocked just like anyone else, but like it's not the same equivalence, but it'd be a tier right below. Luka Doncic coming to the Lakers was like Shohei Ohtani signing with the Los Angeles Dodgers to me. If I had to cherry pick one player in the NBA that I'm building my team around, the entire league, it's Luka Doncic for me, first overall. And it sucks to see Anthony Davis go, but you get Luka Doncic. I'm all for it. I'm excited. I've never been, or I should say, it's been years now since I've been this invested as a basketball and Lakers fan. Then to have me tuning in for most nights now, I'm excited. Can't wait to see how the future shapes out, but I'm pumped. Yeah. We got a random question, and then we're going to do final thoughts and call it a night here. And I think this is a good question because we didn't actually talk about it. But from Ivy, what are some of your favorite bobbleheads for this upcoming season?
One of them that's not a player that I think is really cool is, and we talked about Fat Joe earlier, is Ice Cube, kind of immortalizing his pregame game one of the World Series. It was game one, right, when he came out, I think. Can't remember if it was game one.
I can't remember.
It was one of the home games, but basically the bobblehead immortalizing his moment, and then just the beautiful detail of having the microphone on the ground, from when he dropped it at the end. Yeah. Just an iconic performance. And then when you think about what the Yankees countered with, which was just basically Flat Joe, I mean, it was terrible. Thinking about Ice Cube and the way he energized the crowd, and being from LA and all of that, I love that.
I'm going to get my ass kicked because I don't think I'm going to get really any of these awesome bobbleheads this season. I'm sure the prices are through the roof. Can't talk. Freddie Freeman's walk-off grand slam one, that's iconic. I'm not even expecting to be able to get that one. So congrats to anyone that lands that one. That one's really cool. The Ice Cube one, I'm glad you brought that up because I think I talked about it at one point as a joke. when I was doing a solo show early in the offseason that Ice Cube deserved a bobblehead because of that moment. And then funny enough, the Dodgers give him a bobblehead. So love that. Interesting or not interesting. It's cool. I think this is his first Joe Davis bobblehead. So kind of iconic moment for him. And we'll see how Roki Sasaki does. But if Roki Sasaki's balling, that first bobblehead could be worth a lot of money. And Kobe Bryant getting one on his Kobe Bryant day, also cool to see the Dodgers do that. So this is a loaded, it's like the Dodgers roster. It's a loaded bobblehead class. So a lot of good ones this season, a lot of thought. All right, final thoughts, Jake. Anything else you want to get in there to close out the show?
I can't believe it's spring training. I can't believe we're actually getting some baseball next week. Like that's to me is insane. And I guess as a fan of a team that just won the World Series, obviously the offseason is shorter for those two teams that were in the World Series compared to the other 28 teams in the league. So I guess that's what this feels like. But this offseason felt so short. The other thing that I love about baseball now is it's more year round than it's ever been. And what I mean by that is that the offseason, it's not as exciting, I think, as the regular season or the postseason, but the offseason has a lot of buzz and energy through it. And obviously the Dodgers stole the show this offseason, but it just feels like year round baseball is just becoming one of those sports where it's talked about in every single month. It doesn't matter if games are being played or they're not. And it's kind of up there with the NFL and the NBA now. So I'm super pumped. Obviously really excited for spring training to see what this team looks like and to get into all the little storylines that are at play.
No doubt about it. I don't really have any good final thoughts. I already got my smack talk out there. Quick final thoughts I'll say to close out the show. Love the mindset of these Dodgers players. Maybe not so much Miguel Rojas. Cool up there with your cockiness. Like we're not out there trying to win 120 games, so you can cool it, Miguel. But I like the mindset from a guy like Mookie Betts. Today he was speaking to Fabian, who published this, that yeah, they won the World Series, but it's a reset now. You're going into 2025, clean slate. You can't live on the past and let that get to your head. You're out here trying to win another championship. So I like that mentality. I like the humbleness. Then you're going to see that from a good collection of Dodgers this year. And they added a decent amount of hungry. Well, the players themselves are elite, but it's a decent addition of new hungry talent that have yet to win. So you've got guys like Blake Snell trying to run home that first World Series championship. Kirby Yates has minimal postseason experience. He wants to get one because his career is near the very end. Roki Sasaki, fresh in the majors, probably wants to do what Yamamoto did, win a World Series in year one. So you got this new elite electric pool of talent coming in for the Dodgers as they push to be the first team to win back-to-back World Series in basically 25 years. Thank you guys for watching Incline Dodgers podcast here. If you haven't hit that like button, hit that like and subscribe button. If you want to tune into our live shows, get that notification button on and be a part of the chat. And if you're listening on the audio feed, appreciate all you guys too. You've been killing it. Ratings are going up. Hit that subscribe button and you won't miss an episode. Got a lot of fun content coming up. And I think I may have locked down our next guest. So a little teaser there. Appreciate you guys all. Incline Dodgers podcast. We're out.